All right, let's dive right into this explainer. You know, most introductions to Vedic astrology, or Jyotish, they tend to just hand you a basic list, right? The sun means this, the moon means that, Jupiter is wisdom, and okay, sure, that list isn't exactly wrong, but it's missing the deeper systemic logic that actually makes the whole thing tick. Today, we're going to unpack the 7 classical planets, plus the 2 shadow nodes, to show you that these absolutely aren't just arbitrary symbols with random keywords tacked on. They are complete, living systems with very specific behaviors, relationships, and a really profound governing logic. It's incredibly tempting, isn't it, to just fall into that westernized newspaper horoscope approach where you look up a keyword and kind of just plaster it onto your life. But Jyotish, it demands a lot more rigor than that. We really need to challenge that keyword approach altogether. In this system, understanding a planet's governing logic is literally the difference between a reading that just gives a generic description of your personality and a reading that actually anticipates the precise rhythms and events of your life. So, here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with natural character, then move to the core, look at the heavy modifiers, examine the connective tissue, and finally bring it all together with synthesis. Let's get into it. Section 1. Natural character, benefics versus malefics. Because before we even look at a single individual planet, Jyotish divides them into 2 permanent camps. There is a strict, unbreakable dividing line here between the builders and the testers. Natural benefics, so we're talking Jupiter, Venus, and a bright full moon, they are fundamentally constructive. They expand, they protect, and they support. On the flip side, we have the natural malefics. That's the Sun, Mars, Saturn, the nodes Rahu and Ketu, and a dark waning moon. Their essential nature is separating, restricting, or just plain harsh. They are the testers. And the absolutely crucial point here is that this baseline character never changes. Even if a benefic planet is ruling a really difficult area of your chart, its foundational nature determines exactly how it modifies everything it touches in your life. Moving on to Section 2, the core, sun, and moon. Okay, we need to bust a major myth right out of the gate here. Western astrology often frames the sun simply as your ego, your surface personality. But in Jyotish, Surya, the sun, is the Atmakaraka. It is the planet of the soul. It represents your absolute core life force, your prana. It is the very source of genuine authority that only comes when you are deeply aligned with your core purpose. A strong sun makes a person constitutionally impossible to ignore. Let's look at where the sun actually thrives and where it struggles. The sun is exalted, meaning it reaches its absolute maximum powerful expression in the sign of Aries. And why is that? Well, because Aries is direct, it's pioneering, and it's entirely self-referential, which is exactly what the sun wants to be. But then look at its debilitation in Libra. Libra is all about balance, partnership, and deferring to other people. For the fiery, authoritative sun, having to constantly check in with others in Libra, it's incredibly uncomfortable. It diffuses that core life force. It's also worth noting that the sun gains its maximum directional strength called Bala right at the top of the sky in the 10th house of career and public visibility. Now, if the sun is the soul, the moon, or Chandra, is the mind. But specifically, it is the manas. That's the sensory processing mind. We're not talking about your intellect here. We're talking about the emotional instrument through which you actually feel and experience your entire life. The moon moves incredibly fast in the sky, making it highly sensitive. It thrives in stable, grounded Taurus, but really struggles in turbulent Scorpio. And crucially, its phase matters a ton. A bright full moon gives immense emotional receptivity, while a dark new moon creates a highly private, internal emotional life. And here is exactly why the moon is paramount. If the moon is afflicted, a person experiences their life through a lens of emotional difficulty, completely regardless of how much external wealth or career success might be in their chart. All right, Section 3, the heavy modifiers, Jupiter, Venus, and Saturn. Meet Brihaspati, better known as Jupiter. This is the great benefic of the entire Jyotish system. Jupiter expands, protects, teaches, and blesses absolutely everything it comes into contact with. It governs your wisdom, your sense of dharma or righteous duty, and even wealth that is gained through honest means. And Jupiter has these amazing special aspects too. It doesn't just look directly across the chart, it throws this beautifully protective gaze to the 5th and 9th houses from itself, blessing areas of fortune, higher learning, and children. Jupiter is exalted in the nurturing, watery sign of Cancer, where its generous nature can just flow freely. But look at its debilitation in Capricorn. This is fascinating. Capricorn is Saturn's sign, right? It demands structure, proof, and delayed gratification. But Jupiter wants to expand purely through faith and philosophy. So when Jupiter is debilitated in Capricorn, that expansive wisdom basically hits a brick wall of practicality. It often shows up as a person who has deep inner knowing, but they really struggle to act on it because the world just keeps demanding measurable, practical returns from them. Next up, we have Shukra, or Venus. Venus is the planet of beauty, luxury, the creative arts, and pleasure. But most importantly for our day-to-day lives, it dictates the exact texture of your intimate partnerships. And planetary placements change absolutely everything here. Venus is exalted in Pisces, which is the sign of ultimate dissolution and spirituality. So here, Venus loves without any conditions. It creates art without ego. It's just pure transcendent pleasure. But when Venus is debilitated in the highly analytical sign of Virgo, the dynamic flips entirely. Virgo wants to analyze and perfect things. So a debilitated Venus in Virgo creates someone who deeply loves, but they literally cannot stop themselves from cataloging the flaws of their partner. They struggle to just experience pleasure without the interference of their critical mind. Come on, we all know someone who edits their partner's text messages in their head, right? That's the energy. Okay, we have to talk about Shani, Saturn. Saturn is easily the most misunderstood planet in popular astrology. People hear Saturn and they immediately brace themselves for suffering and punishment. But that is fundamentally incorrect. Saturn is the planet of time and karma. It does not punish you. It simply reflects the exact ratio of effort and patience you have invested into a specific area of your life over time. And this makes perfect sense when you look at its exaltation. Saturn is exalted in Libra, the sign of fairness, balance, and justice. Saturn loves this because its core nature is the equitable distribution of karma. You get exactly what you worked for. But Saturn is debilitated in Aries, which is the sign of impulsiveness, aggressive action, and individual will. Saturn's slow, methodical patience gets completely destroyed in Aries, resulting in impulsive restrictions and delays that feel entirely arbitrary and incredibly frustrating. It is literally the ultimate test of learning to just wait your turn. Section 4. The connective tissue, action, intellect, and the shadows. Let's move through these foundational pieces. Mars represents your decisive action and your directed will. Interestingly enough, it debilitates in Cancer, the moon's highly sensitive sign. This means the sharp, cutting energy of Mars just gets drowned in emotion, often resulting in action driven by hurt feelings rather than a clear strategy. Mercury, on the other hand, is your intellect and commerce. Mercury is a total chameleon. It's neutral to everyone and entirely adopts the nature of whoever it sits with. Because it stays so incredibly close to the sun, it often gets what we call combust, meaning its communicative sharpness gets burned up. That's why you sometimes see highly intelligent people stumble over their words in public. Then we have the shadow nodes, Rahu and Ketu. They're always sitting exactly opposite each other, creating the primary axis of tension in your entire life. Rahu amplifies things. It is this intense, obsessive pull toward unconventional things, constantly wanting more. Ketu is the exact opposite. Ketu represents detachment. It represents past life accumulation. Basically, these are areas where you have immense innate skill, but absolutely no desire or fulfillment in actually doing it. Finally, Section 5. Synthesis and planetary relationships. The classical texts outline a very strict, complex matrix of planetary friendships and enmities. For example, the Sun loves Jupiter, but it absolutely hates Saturn. Mercury loves Venus, but hates the Moon. So when two planets sit together in your chart, they don't just magically add their energies together. If they are natural friends, they compound and elevate each other. But if they are natural enemies trapped in the exact same room, they actively undermine and dampen each other's effects. And this brings us to the ultimate takeaway here. You cannot look at one planet in isolation. A planet might be exalted in a great sign, but severely damaged by an enemy's gaze or burned up by the sun. A real chart reading is never just a keyword lookup. It is a rigorous mathematical assessment of dignity, directional strength, and complex relationships, all weighed against each other in the context of the whole. This system is ancient, it is incredibly rigorous, and honestly, it is startlingly accurate when applied with all of its governing logic intact. So the question I'll leave you with is this. Now that you know it's not just about simple keywords, are you ready to see what your chart is actually made of?